Hey everyone, I'm John Lynn, the founder and chief editor at Healthcare IT Today. We're excited to bring another in our series of interviews with top leaders in health IT. And our guest today is Krush. She's CEO and co-founder at Hyro. Welcome, Israel.
Thank you so much for having me, John.
Yeah, great to have you on. We've known your company for a long time, doing some really interesting work. But for those that don't know about you, tell us about yourself and Hyro.
Yeah, absolutely. So at Hyro, we deploy responsible voice AI agents and chat AI agents to really improve patients' access to care, while also increasing the operational efficiency of the health systems that we help them with. So think about like use cases around scheduling, appointment management, prescription support, automating all of these like administrative parts of the patient journey.
Interesting. As people are approaching those problems, right, they're kind of looking at large language models and those,
right.
I mean, imagine that. We're talking about large language models that help. But a lot of people look at it and say, well, and companies are claiming to just be able to spin out AI agents, as you kind of described, to solve some of these problems in healthcare. What's Hyro's approach and what makes Hyro unique in the market as far as creating the agents you talked about?
Yeah, so to your point, like we see a lot of noise, right? And like this iceberg metaphor where you see the tip of the iceberg, but beneath there's so much.
Yep.
So I think that's what's happening today with LLMs. You think about the LLM, you might think about like a RAG implementation or like another new buzzword. But I think that specifically in healthcare, what people underappreciate is the work that you need to do in mapping all of the workflows, the edge cases, the decision trees around like scheduling even like and managing appointments. So for an outsider, and I'm an outsider for healthcare, might be like, what's the big problem here? And for the ones of us who have been looking and tackling and thinking about decision trees and visit types, and how do we register patients, identify patients for primary care, for specialty lines, for high value procedures like mammograms and colonoscopies, like you understand that this is not that simple. So we've spent a lot of time on the mapping of those workflows, on the deep integration to various parts of the patient journey, mainly the EHR, mainly to Epic, which is again dominant in the large and complex health systems, and finally to the call center infrastructure themselves.
Okay.
Besides that, we're also developing a bunch of small language models that are good for specific tasks. So we take like a very much of an orchestration approach where we're going to use best of breed when it comes to all of these new large language models, and we're going to evaluate them constantly. We think about it as governance as a service or like monitoring as a service. But we're also putting like our own specific small language models and building blocks to really help with the workflows that we mapped, with the deep integrations that we've had. And that's what really helps us be above the noise.
Interesting. Talk to me more about that large language model versus small language model. Is it the concept of like, a healthcare model doesn't need to know nuclear physics, right?
Right.
Is that kind of how you approach it? It's large in its focus, but small in what it actually can accomplish?
100%. So I think that the commoditization that you spoke about with large language models is real. And I think that today machines can understand human language.
Right.
So this problem is solved or almost solved, and we're not going to be the ones to solve it, right? The question is, how do you orchestrate this with things that are not as public, like the workflows themselves? Like, what are the reasons that patients are calling about?
Okay.
And how they're speaking when they're calling about it. So I'm looking for a dermatologist, or like I'm looking for a dermatologist in a specific area, or I'm just looking for a physician in a specific area. All of that might route you to like different places in the health system. And just like understanding like this entire dynamic and gathering like millions of calls to actually being able to decipher that and building like a statistical model that can help you reach the right path or like the next step of your care journey. That's a lot of what we do. So.
Interesting. It's almost like a contextual language model. Is what it sounds like.
That's right. Like we're talking about it that without context, yes, you can have a very long form conversation with the large language model, but it's not going to help you to schedule your appointment.
Yeah, I love that. So enterprise health systems are, still somewhat, concerned about, okay, they want to use AI, they see the opportunity, but maybe there's some concern, especially with patient-facing communications. How do you overcome those types of security concerns or even model concerns, and what type of guardrails are you putting in place to make sure that they feel comfortable and trust that it's going to treat that really important patient communication the right way.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, like hats off to the industry in like some of the transformation that we're seeing with AI governance committees and chief AI officers coming into the mix, and really like looking at like various security elements and thinking about some of the AI strategies. So really like that's first. Now, to your point, patient-facing AI is call it like more complex, or like the cost of mistake is higher than like in back-end AI, right? However, even here you can see like the difference between clinical decision making to automating administrative, repetitive, mundane tasks like scheduling, right? So we call them like clinical workflows or like care path ways, but in reality, a lot of those are administrative by nature and not necessarily like touch clinical decision making, which like call it like would be another level of risk. And finally, to your point, I said we're deploying responsible AI agents. What do I mean by responsible? I'm allergic to buzzwords, so like I feel like I need to explain what it means. We think about three main pillars, which are explainability, control, and compliance. And explainability just means how can we better understand why the AI gave the answer that it gave, right? And again, like that's a very complex problem by itself, but give you like the trace, right? Like to understand what are the sources, etc. Control, again, controlling or making sure that we do not give a patient a symptom triaging based on a Reddit forum, right? So what are the inputs that are getting into the model? How we're prioritizing them? How do we make sure that in, for example, emergency situation or intent, we don't want any Gen AI, like the generative piece, we don't want it in an emergency. It's just like go to the or call 911. That's it. So that's the control. And finally, compliance. And you can think about it as HIPAA and reduction of like PII, but it's also thinking about, well, we're going to govern AI in some form of way, right? And how are we going to be ready for that and not just like waste years of implementation now? So compliance is another big aspect, and that's how we think about responsible AI.
That's awesome. Well, you just announced a new fundraising round of $45 million. Yes, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Coming from Healthier, Define, and Norwest, what will that fresh round of funding go towards? How are you going to use it and improve what you're doing?
So we're getting like so much love from our existing customers and partners, and they just want us to do more and more stuff. Now, on that end, we're working today with over 40 of the largest and most complex health systems, but there are like hundreds more. So I think that for us is, one, how do we get our AI agents to many other health systems? Two, is how do we build more for the existing health systems and customers? And we're already like seeing paths, specifically use cases that we're not tackling today. So like for that, we're going to recruit and build 5 different engineering teams, new 5 engineering teams to really like tackle different use cases.
That's amazing.
And finally, we're going to also go, I'm talking about the large and complex health systems, so we're going to go also a bit mid-market. I won't say like the 10 physician groups, but like the specialty groups, the specialty clinics in orthopedics, in pediatrics, and we're going to try to take like the best practices that we've learned from these large and complex health systems and apply it also mid-market.
That's awesome. Talk to me about your investors. Are there any of them that you consider strategic investors that are going to help accelerate what you're doing? And how do you look at kind of the investors that you included in the round?
So we're in a very unique spot in time in which healthcare AI is buzzing, is booming. So capital was a non-issue, right? And we were actually very strategic about choosing the investor and also thinking about what do we need in order to get to this next level. So this entire round for us was very strategic by nature. So Norwest, you can think about them as like the blue chip tier big VC, right? Which can help support the growth. Healthcare Capital led by Amir Dan Rubin, the ex-CEO of One Medical and Stanford Health. This guy knows healthcare in and out, from the health system side and also the innovator incumbent, like the One Medical side. Define, they're a very known digital health fund, like this is their sixth fund. We know Lean and we know the folks there. So we said like, and I've experienced firsthand like the amazing work that they're doing with health systems. So we were able to combine all of them, add Mercy Bonsa Cores, a long-time customer of us, and ServiceNow, which is being used by like 90% of the health system.
It's the hidden software behind almost every health system.
There you go, right? Like they're almost like a healthcare company, not an IT company. But we found so much alignment with them as well. So like this entire round was very strategic by nature.
Very interesting. Yeah, I'd love to look back. You've come a long way. You've raised $45 million. You have some amazing customers. Like, why did you originally start Hyro, and kind of how has that mission grown or changed over these last few years where we've seen so much innovation in AI? Yeah. Like, how has that evolved?
Yeah, so like our story is a bit interesting and unique in the sense that, as I said, I'm not a healthcare guy, or at least I wasn't. Now I am.
And now you are.
Right? So we started the company thinking about AI agents. We're talking 7 years ago. And the need for large enterprise organizations with lots of data from various data sources to deploy and maintain AI agents. And we, with Lean startup like methodology, like we found out healthcare, like and we were like, oh, this is an interesting industry. And like I like to say we fell in love in the industry, that then people start laughing at that. So I'm like, well, we fell in love with the amount of problems that we see and our belief that we can fix many of those with AI agents. So it took us some time, but we became from like an AI agents company with healthcare as a leading vertical to a digital health company focusing on patient access to care and operational efficiency for health systems that happens to use AI agents, right? So I think like in that sense, we're unique. But in the sense of like the understanding that humans, you and I, patients, are going to interact with technology through natural language, voice, chat, SMS, like that belief we had a long time ago, before it was sexy, right?
Yeah. So, well, I mean, what an evolution. And it's great that you're focusing on healthcare, because we need innovators like you to come in and help solve some of those problems. And you do automate a lot of use cases in healthcare. We talked to some of them, and obviously you focus largely, I think, on the provider space, right? But beyond voice and chat-based interactions, which, people know the Hyro bot and things like that, what are some of the other interesting components of Hyro's platform that you're doing and that are making an impact?
So, like we've learned from our customers, like that call center is a black box. It's a very costly black box, right? So they're going to the call center like to automate it and reduce cost, but you can think about it actually as a revenue generation piece. So, and I don't know that there are a lot of CEOs of health systems that can tell you, this is how many calls I'm getting to my call centers, and this is the funnel and the conversion rate of like the patients that try to schedule with us and actually succeeded. So when you like switch a mindset and really think about it, well, I can actually optimize this entire process, and I can actually improve my funnel, and I can reduce my no-shows, and I can reduce maybe my readmission rates, right, which helps with star rating and whatnot.
Sure.
And I can close some gaps in care and schedule more annual checkups and more colonoscopies and mammograms. All of a sudden, this is very interesting. And like the piece besides like the agents themselves is really the analytics and the insights into this black box, which I see that our customers see as very valuable, like finally understanding what's going on in this black box and how we can not only think about the call center as a cost center, but actually like utilize it to generate more revenue and better patient outcomes.
I think you're right. Like you look at it and it's almost like electricity.
Yeah.
Like you had to pay for it, and you're going to use whatever you use. I think they're like, well, we have to have a call center, we have to pay for it, and we use whatever we use. Rather, that's a fundamental shift in mindset that you just described.
100%.
Wow, interesting. How about looking to the future? Like, where are you taking, your products, your product roadmap? What's next, and any exciting things coming up in 2026?
Yeah, so I think that I can highlight three main exciting things. One, to my point, like we're very bullish on scheduling and appointment management. This is the number one call driver to all of these health systems. So going even deeper to that, into like the complex specialty lines from oncology, cardiology, ortho, really tackling like those decision trees, almost like a mythical creature that no one knows like how to automate, right? So that's one piece. As part of that, as I've mentioned, going mid-market and just like helping other health organizations, not necessarily the large health systems, to get like the best of class, like the best practices that we've learned from like millions, tens of millions of patient conversations. And finally, what we're seeing is that our customers drive us to do more proactive care. So it's not only automating the calls that are getting to the call center or the chatbots on the website, it's actually reaching out proactively on behalf of the health system to the patient.
Nice.
So we talked about gaps in care. There's everything that's going on with the Big Beautiful Bill and like how it affects like Medicaid, re-enrollment, redetermination. Again, educating patients about that. So many use cases that the health system or like the health organization can initiate the initial interaction versus just being reactive. So this move from reactive to proactive.
Yeah, I love that. And we actually wrote about this. If people want to go check out Healthcare IT Today, you offer a free solution to educate on the Big Beautiful Bill. So people should look up Hyro on Healthcare IT Today. They can learn all about it. So that's awesome that you're taking that time. Well, I appreciate you coming and talking with us. I love the innovation you're happening. I think everyone's saying, what can we do with AI? I'm glad to see you're actually doing it, not just talking about it. So kudos to you and the team, and thanks for coming to talk with us and share all these insights and perspectives. And thanks everyone for watching and listening. You got to find more great healthcare IT content like this. Be sure to check it out at healthcareittoday.com or search for Healthcare IT Today on your favorite podcast applications. Thanks, Israel.
Thank you.